Ladies and gentlemen, the trade market just keeps on rolling, and we got another one here out of left field. Sonny Gray heading to the Red Sox with cash, and back to the Cardinals, we got Richard Fitts and left-handed pitching prospect Brandon Clark. I like this trade for both sides. Let's break it down. All right, so before I break down the trade for each team, let's talk about the trade itself. Like I said, Sonny Gray and cash going back to the Red Sox, $20 million of cash to be exact. This is going to help offset the negative value of Sonny Gray, negative $9.4 million on the median value here on baseball trade values at the moment. The reason for that is because he's making a lot of money for 2026. His salary is going up to $35 million plus a $5 million buyout for the 2027 mutual option. Now, with Gray coming off a very good season with the Cardinals this past year, 32 starts, 180 and 2/3 innings pitched, ERA at a 4.28, but the FIP was a lot better at 3.39, 10 strikeouts per nine, under 2 walks per nine. With that kind of a ratio, you are set for some good projections heading into 2026. As of right now, Fangraphs, they're giving him a 4.0 wins above replacement. I think it's safe to say he'll finish anywhere between a 3 and a 4 overall, which does have good value, but the fact that he's making $40 million is really going to offset that, so that's why he's going to be in the negatives, and that's why the Red Sox are getting a good amount of cash. They're basically paying the qualifying offer for Sonny Gray, which I think is very good value there, and for a lot more reasons than just the pitcher himself. I'll talk about that in just a little bit. But for the Cardinals, I think they did very well here. I've been talking about the Cardinals for a little while now, heading into a new era, led by Chaim Bloom. They're going in a different direction. So I've been saying it's good for the Cardinals to try and clear some payroll, especially, give them a bit more flexibility moving forward. So, next offseason, whatever happens this year, they can look to, maybe invest in some guys on the free agent market. And I think it's good for them to save some money here by moving Sonny Gray. I think they should do the same thing with Nolan Arenado. Maybe they could do that with Wilson Contreras. We'll see what they end up doing, but I think this is a good first step for the Cardinals. The two players they got back in return, Richard Fitts and Brandon Clark. I think this was a good return for the Cardinals. Now, Richard Fitts has shown flashes over the last couple of years. Now, this year, the numbers overall didn't look great. ERA at a 5, FIP at a 5.80. He had a good first couple of starts of the season, but then he ran into some injuries, and he just never really got himself back on track. But back in 2024, had a few starts, had a cup of coffee. He was looking really good, had a 1.74 ERA, FIP at a 3.31. This is a guy that's going to give you some good breaking stuff, pretty solid velo overall. This is a guy that could be a member of the Cardinals rotation for the next several years. I think this was a very nice pickup for the Cardinals. Someone that could be an anchor in the middle to the back end of the rotation. I think it's a solid pickup. But the guy that I find the most interesting for the Cardinals here is Brandon Clark. Got drafted not too long ago, and he's been looking very good to start off his career down in the minors. Has very good stuff from the left side, has a 60 grade fastball, and currently Fangraphs, they give him a 70 grade on the slider and a 80 future grade on it. It's a nasty pitch. It's a wipeout pitch. He struck out a lot of batters with it this year, has a changeup to go along with it. And taking a look at the strikeout numbers this past year, he had 14 strikeouts per nine between A and high A this past year. But the one thing that he's got to work on here is the control. 6.4 walks per nine. He's got to focus on that, improving the command if he wants to be an impact starter down the road. So because of the control issues, there is a bit of reliever risk with him, but regardless, very good stuff. Excited to see what he can do in the Cardinals organization. But with the Cardinals, this shows the direction they're trying to go in when it comes to the pitching philosophy within the organization. They're looking for more velo. They're looking for more stuff. You take a look at the draft pick, Liam Doyle this past year out of the draft with their first round selection, getting a guy like Brandon Clark. They're looking for more stuff, more velo within the organization. I like the direction the Cardinals are going in. They're trying to change things up, and I think Brandon Clark is absolutely an example of that. Now, I think this is just the first of many moves for the Cardinals this offseason. They got a lot of other guys they can move, especially guys on contracts. Nolan Arenado, now, sure, he is owed a lot of money over the next couple of years. The performance hasn't been great over the last couple of years, but he's someone that can provide some very good defense at third base. I think of the Angels possibly. I know they got Anthony Rendon still on the payroll there, but they were pretty terrible defensively at third base last year. Maybe he can be an upgrade for them. You got someone like Brendan Donovan, who is still under arbitration, has a couple more years of control, has very good trade surplus value. They could definitely move him somewhere and get a good return. There are a lot of teams out there could use someone like him. I think the Yankees make a lot of sense. They could use another guy that makes a lot of contact. He could be a leadoff hitter hitter for them. Depending on what happens with the Red Sox and Alex Bregman, I actually wonder if he could be an option for them. If the Red Sox want to focus more on going after a middle-of-the-order bat like Pete Alonso or Kyle Schwarber, and they wanted to go after a guy that can also make a lot of contact, well, Brendan Donovan, I think, would be a very nice piece of the Red Sox there. You could put Marcelo Meyer at third base, Brendan Donovan at second base, Kyle Schwarber at DH, or Pete Alonso if they wanted to go that route at first base, and I think the Red Sox would be cooking there. But Brendan Donovan, there's a lot of spots he could go to. You got someone like Alec Burleson who can hit for some pop. He's got some decent value. Wilson Contreras, he's under contract. He looked very good defensively at first base this past year. I could see him staying in St. Louis. That's a guy they just signed to a long-term deal. So you got someone like Lars Nootbaar who just got surgery not too long ago, but he shouldn't miss a ton of time in 2026. That's a guy who's still a pretty solid player, I think, despite not having a great season this past year. Nolan Gorman, still trying to find his way in the majors, but a guy that still has some upside. You know, this is a guy that people were very high on not too long ago. Maybe a change of scenery can do some good for him. But the Cardinals, I mean, they got a lot of guys that could possibly move here. I think this is just the first of many moves to the Cardinals this offseason. Now let's talk about the Red Sox. I think Sonny Gray is a solid addition for the Red Sox rotation here. We just went over the numbers earlier. 32 starts, 180 innings pitched. He's been a workhorse over the last few years. ERA in the low fours, but the FIP was a lot better at a 3.39. Good strikeout to walk ratio this past year. He had one of the better strikeout to walk ratios in the majors. He was up there with guys like Garrett Crochet, Tarek Skubal, Paul Skeens, Brian Wu. So this guy is still very good at getting a lot of swing and miss while throwing a lot of strikes, and that's something that the Red Sox have been looking for here. 10 strikeouts per nine this past year, under 2 walks per nine. You know, he's not going to blow you away with velo, but he's got great breaking stuff. He's got a ton of pitches that he likes to work with. I'd say a pretty crafty guy, but a good veteran to add to this rotation. Now, the question is he going to be the number 2 for the Red Sox? Now, for me personally, I think he's an okay number 2, but a very good number 3. I think there still is the chance that the Red Sox could add more to the top of the rotation behind Garrett Crochet. So here's the Red Sox rotation as of right now. You got Garrett Crochet as the ace, Sonny Gray as the 2, Brian Bayo as the 3, Cutter Crawford as the 4, and Patrick Sandoval, who's coming back in 2026, listed as the 5. But don't forget, you got a lot of other options right now within the Red Sox organization. Peyton Tolley, one of the top pitching prospects in all of baseball. Connolly Early, he did some great things after getting called up last year, starting against the Yankees in the postseason. You got Kyle Harrison, who they got back in the Rafi Devers trade. Hunter Dobbins showed some good things last year. You got some other minor leaguers like David Sandlin, Luis Perales. You got a lot of guys in the mix right now for the Red Sox. So I wonder if the addition of Sonny Gray, while not really having to give up, assets that aren't going to hurt you long term, I wonder if that could give the Red Sox a bit more flexibility here to maybe move some of these other guys to add more to the top of the rotation. Or could you go after a guy like Dylan Cease on the free agent market? They've been interested in him over the last couple of years while he was with the White Sox and the Padres. They were popping up in the rumor mill for him, and they like his swing and miss stuff. Sure, ERA in the mid-4s last year, but the FIP was in the mid-3s, strikes out a lot of batters. I could see the Red Sox being interested in that. I mean, could you imagine a rotation of Garrett Crochet, Dylan Cease, Sonny Gray, Brian Bayo is your 4, and then you figure it out with the 5 spot? If you were to go that route, the Red Sox would have a lot of assets at that point to pull off some kind of a trade, and if not Dylan Cease, could you revisit someone like Joe Ryan, who they were talking to the Twins about at the deadline? Freddie Peralta, and I'm not sure if the Twins or the Brewers are going to move either of these guys, but, could you go that route? So I think it's possible that the Red Sox could still add to this rotation because you have a lot of guys that you can move. If not, you still have a lot of assets here to maybe go after a bat for the middle of the order. The Red Sox really need to add some power to the middle of the order here. They were only 15th in home runs last year, and that was with a couple of months of Rafi Devers. After they traded him to the Giants, they ranked in the bottom 10 in home runs. They need to add some beef to the middle of the order. They need to go after a guy like Kyle Schwarber or Pete Alonso. But then I think back to the report we got not too long ago from John Morosi and Alex Spear saying the Red Sox are more likely to go after one of the premium bats out there, Alex Bregman, Alonso, Schwarber. Maybe Bo Bichette can be in that mix. But if the Red Sox were to only go after one of those bats, I think they got to go after a power bat. I would love for them to bring back Alex Bregman, absolutely, but they need a big bopper in in the middle of the order. So Kyle Schwarber, Pete Alonso, sign one of those guys. You got a lot of other guys in the mix here on the pitching side of things that you could use in a trade to go after someone like Ketel Marte, who keeps popping up in the rumor mill. They could play him at second base. Marcelo Meyer can take over for Bregman at third base. You got someone like Brendan Donovan, who I mentioned earlier. He could play second base as well. Meyer can take over at third base. Now, if they did bring back Bregman, I also think that would be a great idea because he was a perfect fit at Fenway Park with his right-handed swing. He was great in the clubhouse, and he brought a winning mentality to Boston. But if he ends up being the only high-priced free agent they bring in, so no Kyle Schwarber or Pete Alonso, then they're going to have to find power elsewhere. So maybe they could tap into the lower-tier market and take a chance there for someone like Kazuma Okamoto out of Japan, who does have power upside from the right side. He's a big pull hitter. Could be a good fit at Fenway Park. Or maybe they take a chance on Munetaka Murakami if the price is right. Yes, there's a lot of strikeouts there, not a whole lot of contact, but there is a lot of power there, and he does have the power to clear at Fenway Park. Or maybe they could turn to Eugenio Suarez. He would bring a lot of strikeouts, but a ton of power from the right side. He has been a third baseman, but maybe they could have him play first base instead, do some time at DH as well. So I think there is a possibility the Red Sox could bring back Bregman, sign a lower tier bat, and then they would still have a lot of assets to use in other trades to maybe go land another pitcher or whoever else. I think adding Gray was a solid move because they needed to add upside to the rotation, and they didn't give up a whole lot of assets that are going to hurt them long term. Now, sure, Brandon Clark, he could be a good arm down the road, but the Red Sox already have guys like Peyton Tolley and Connolly Early. They got some other young pitching down there in the minor leagues as well. And Richard Fitz, he was really just a depth guy for the Red Sox. Maybe he could be something better for the Cardinals. So I think it was a good trade overall for both sides, especially for the Red Sox. But again, I think it gives them more flexibility to go out there and make a move. I mean, heck, I'll give a bit of a hot take here. Let's say the Red Sox go out there and sign Dylan Cease to a long-term deal. Could you maybe see them turn around and maybe even do something with Brian Bayo, perhaps? Now, I don't think the Red Sox are going to move Brian Bayo, but if they were to go this route, someone like him on a pretty team-friendly deal could be expendable. Hey, getting back to Ketel Marte here, if the Diamondbacks did want to move on from him, could you do some kind of a deal with Jarren Duran, Brian Bayo, maybe a prospect in there as well, send back to the Diamondbacks, so that way they get some major league ready talent that will still help them compete, and they move on from Ketel Marte if that's what they really wanted to do. I'm not so sure, but I just think there's a lot of avenues for the Red Sox to go down right now. They have a lot more flexibility, and bringing in Gray, I think, was great because they have more flexibility now, and they didn't have to give up a whole lot. You didn't have to give up really any of your top prospects to land him. I just think this is a great move for the Red Sox because they added upside to the rotation, and they still have a lot of assets to work with if they wanted to go pull off a trade for a big bat or another starter for the rotation, whatever it may be. Overall, I like this move for the Red Sox, but let me know what you think down below in the comments. Who do you think won this trade? Do you think it was a win for both sides? I personally think it was a win for both sides, but those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. If you're kind of the way out, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new, and I'll talk to you next time.